Tonight we get to start section 7 of the review, applications of equations, which is a nice fancy way of saying story problems. Now typically in algebra students aren't real crazy about story problems because they're not given the equation to solve, they have to come up with that. But I have a set of 5 rules which are probably very typical of what other teachers show when solving word problems, story problems, application problems. And I'm going to go through these and I'm going to use these with story problems throughout this textbook. Step number 1 seems trivial, but probably the most important is to read the problem carefully. Make sure you understand what it's saying. Make sure you understand what it's looking for, what it's given. If you can, picture yourself in the problem. You might even, after reading it, you might even want to draw a diagram depending on the type of problem to help you out. Sometimes creating a table works as well. Then, 2, state the variable. Whatever your unknown is, pick a variable for it. Sometimes you'll have more than one unknown, and you may have to use the variable written different ways to state all the different unknowns. There's an example of that coming up. Write an equation that models the problem. This is what separates the wheat from the chaff. If you can solve the equation, great. But if you don't have the equation, then you've got problems. So you have to make sure that you can interpret what the problem is saying, look for key words to rewrite and put into more of an algebraic form to come up with an equation to solve. And of course, step 4 is to solve the equation, which we've been doing quite a bit of. Step 5, formally state the answer. What I mean by that is if it's a story problem, you should write your final answer in a short sentence. It doesn't have to be a paragraph, just should be a short sentence. Don't just circle the answer to the equation. Make sure you have proper units. So if it's talking about money, make sure you have your dollar sign. And by the way, the dollar sign goes to the left of the number, not to the right. I see that all the time. It drives me crazy. Does the answer seem logical? Well, if you're trying to find somebody's age and the answer to the equation is 147, maybe it's not so logical. So again, make sure the answer makes sense, kind of check your work, use proper units, write it out in a short sentence. The first type of story problem we're going to look at, and again, please, this is a review. I cannot do an example of every single possible type. What I can do is an example or two of the most typical types, and then you may have to do some adjusting, or you may have to alter your thinking a little bit if they put a twist to the problem. But simple interest problems, interest equals principal times rate times time. Principal, money you borrow or the money you invest, the rate of interest, we write this as a decimal, typically it's given to us as a percent, and the time is given to us sometimes in months, sometimes in years, but it has to be in years. So if they give it time in months, we have to convert that into years. And here's an example. It took a while to write this all out, so hopefully you'll enjoy this one. Jim borrowed $10,000. Part of the money borrowed was from a bank that charged 5.5% simple interest. The rest was borrowed from a friend to whom Jim paid 2.5% simple interest. Jim paid back his friend after 9 months and the bank after 2 years. If the total amount Jim paid in interest was $735, how much did he borrow from each source? Now I've read this problem a couple, 3 times here just today, and there's so much to it, it's hard to keep track. You may want to read through this a couple, 3 more times to make sure you understand what's going on. But in this case, they're looking for how much did he borrow from each source. So we don't know how much he borrowed from the bank or from his friend. We know the rates of interest, but we just don't know the amounts. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to let X be the amount borrowed from the bank. Okay, this is my step 2. This is what I call stating the variable. Tell me what the variable is equal to. I write it out. I don't take forever and a day. I just write it out so that I remember that when I solve and get X, I know what X is representing. Now there are 2 loans. Remember, he borrowed $10,000 total, X dollars from the bank, so the rest of it came from his friend. So if he's, let's say this was $5,000, then the rest would be $5,000, 10,000 minus 5,000. Let's say this was $8,000, then the rest would be 10,000 minus 8,000, $2,000. So we can find the amount that he borrowed from his friend by subtracting the amount from the bank from the total. And this might be the trickiest step to the whole problem. There's some computation coming up, but from his friend. Because now all I'm going to do is I'm going to use the formula for simple interest. I'm going to start off with figuring out the interest for the bank, and I'm going to add to that the interest he pays his friend, and I'm going to set that equal to all the interest paid was equal $735. So the amount that he borrowed from the bank was X, 5.5%, 2 years. So this is principal times rate. Now 5.5%, remember what you do here, you slide the decimal 2 places to the left and drop the percent sign, so that'd be 0.055 times 2 years total. And that's the interest that he paid the bank. The interest that he paid his friend, well, that was 10,000 minus X, that's how much money it was that he borrowed, times the rate of interest, which is 0.025, 2.5% rate of interest, and it's for 9 months. Now don't put a 9 here, because if you put a 9 there, the formula thinks it's 9 years. You have to put 9 months in years, and 9 out of 12, that's 3/4. And that's all the interest that was paid, $735. Now we've got the hard stuff done, believe it or not, but we do have some grinding out with all these decimals. I'm going to try to simplify the expression, and if I still have decimals, I may just go ahead and multiply through by a power of 10 to eliminate them. So 2 times 0.055, that would be X times 0.11. Well, let's make sure. Students become so dependent on calculators. 3. Yep. Plus, now 0.025 times 3/4. Maybe 3/4 would be better off as 0.75 since I have so many decimals. So I have to do a little scratch work here. Don't have my calculator handy. So that's 5 carry 2, that's 12, that's 5 carry 3, that's 17, that's a 5, a 7, an 8, a 1 with 5 decimal places. So this turns out to be 10,000 minus X times 0.01875. That's a lot of decimal places, so let's see what we can do to maybe simplify this just a little bit. 2 decimal places here. And that's just a lot of, that's 5 decimal places. I don't know if I want to multiply through by 100,000. Let's distribute. So this is 0.11x plus. Now if I multiply this times 10,000, that's 4 zeros, it's going to slide at 4 places. I'm going to get 187.5 minus 0.01875x, distributing, equals 735. So now I'm going to go ahead and combine like terms. So I have 0.11 and then 1, 2, 3 zeros all over 0.01875, and I'll subtract 52190. So I end up with 0.09125x, combining like terms, plus 187.5 is equal to 735. I'm going to subtract 187.5 from both sides. So let's see, 735, 187.5. So let's see, 5, 7, 4, 5, I get 547.5 if I didn't mess up. I got this really bad feeling I made a silly mistake because I'm in a hurry. Now I'm going to divide both sides by 0.09125. Yikes. I hope I have my calculator somewhere close by because I don't want to do this the hard way. Oh, or even better yet, I'll cheat and I'll look at my arithmetic here that I have written down here on this piece of paper, and I find that to be X turns out to be 6,000, if I didn't mess up on this, and hopefully I didn't mess up. So X is 6,000 tells me that he borrowed $6,000 from the bank, and from his friend, 10,000 minus 6,000 would be 4,000. Alright, so I read it carefully, I stated my variable, I wrote my equation, I solved my equation, what a pain that one was. But now I'm going to formally state my answer, and I have to make sure of the dollar sign. I go back to the problem, how much did he borrow from each source? So I kind of put it over here. Usually I just put it underneath, but I'm running out of, oh, we can squeeze it in. Jim borrowed $6,000 from the bank. And $4,000 from his friend. And that's the problem. So notice the 5 steps. Read it carefully, state the variable, write the equation that models it, solve the equation, formally state your answer. Good suggestion, just in case you get another one like this, have a calculator close by.